The city pulsed with a restless energy, its neon heartbeat throbbing through the glass walls of the penthouse where Elena stood, her fingers trembling as they fumbled with the door handle. Her heart raced a chaotic rhythm that mirrored the late-night chaos of New York below. The night had been a blur of clinking glasses, sultry laughter, and the kind of reckless abandon that only too many martinis could unleash. Her senses were a delightful mess, her balance teetering as she stumbled across the threshold. The cool, marble floor was a sharp contrast to the heat radiating from her skin. The crimson dress she'd chosen bold, daring, and perhaps a little too revealing clung to her like a lover's embrace, its sheer fabric outlining every curve with unapologetic precision. It was a dress that screamed confidence, a choice that now felt both exhilarating and dangerous, as if it had known the night would lead her here. Elena's breath hitched as she caught sight of the digital clock on the mantel, its red glow glaring like a judgmental eye. She squinted, the numbers blurring before her, a silent accusation of her recklessness. The city's nocturnal symphony honking taxis and distant sirens hummed outside, indifferent to her disorientation. She was alone, or so she thought, until a shadow moved in the dimly lit foyer. Her stepson Caleb emerged, his presence as startling as it was grounding, his dark eyes locked onto hers, steady and sure as he crossed the room in quick strides. Before she could protest, his arms were around her, strong and familiar, pulling her from the staircase's edge. The heat of his hands on her waist seared through the thin fabric of her dress, sending a jolt of electricity through her core. It wasn't just the summer air or the alcohol. It was something deeper, something forbidden. Elena's heart pounded as Caleb guided her toward her room, his touch both a lifeline and a temptation. She was acutely aware of her dress riding up, revealing the lace edge of her undergarments, a fleeting glimpse that caught the moonlight streaming through the window. Her slurred protest died on her lips as his grip tightened, a silent promise to see her safely to bed. The journey was a haze of sensations, the plush carpet underfoot, the solid warmth of Caleb's chest against her back, the faint scent of his cologne mingling with the night's lingering musk. When they reached her room, her knees buckled, and she sank onto the bed, her eyelids heavy with exhaustion. Caleb knelt before her, his movements deliberate as he unfastened her heels, his knuckles brushing her calf in a way that sent shivers up her spine. The tenderness in his touch felt intimate, almost too intimate, and her mind swirled with confusion and curiosity as he rose to leave. Elena's hand shot out, grasping his wrist. "Stay," she whispered, the word hanging in the air like a fragile thread. Caleb's gaze met hers, conflict flickering in his eyes. For a moment, she thought he might give in, that the tension crackling between them would ignite, but he pulled away, his voice low and strained. "You need to rest, Elena." She watched him retreat, her heart thudding with a mix of disappointment and relief. As she sank into the silk sheets, her dress twisting around her waist, she surrendered to sleep her dreams, a tangled web of shadowed corridors and forbidden touches. Somewhere deep in her subconscious, she knew the night had set something irreversible in motion. The morning light filtered through sheer curtains, casting a golden glow over the rumpled sheets. Elena stirred, her body aching from the night's excesses, her head throbbing with a dull reminder of too many drinks. The cool sheets against her bare skin were a stark contrast to the heat that had enveloped her hours ago. Memories of the night began to surface, flashes of city lights, Caleb's steady hands, the way his touch had lingered. A shiver ran through her, a mix of gratitude for his care and unease at the boundaries they'd brushed against. She slipped from bed, padding barefoot to the ensuite bathroom, where the shower's hot spray offered a momentary escape. As the water cascaded over her, tracing the contours of her fit, disciplined body, she closed her eyes, letting the steam cocoon her from the complexities of her reality. wrapped in a silk robe. Elena moved to the kitchen, the penthouse's silence amplifying her racing thoughts. The familiar ritual of brewing coffee grounded her, grinding beans, slicing bread, setting the table with care. Yet beneath the mundane tasks, her mind churned with the inevitability of confronting Caleb. She prepared poached eggs with an artist's precision, the vibrant hues of avocado and cherry tomatoes a fleeting distraction when she called for Caleb. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the fragile normalcy she clung to. He entered, his dark hair tousled, his expression guarded. Their eyes met a silent acknowledgement of the shift between them. The clink of cutlery against plates filled the quiet, a hollow echo in the tense air. Elena set her fork down, her resolve hardening. Caleb, we need to talk about last night. Her voice was steady, though her chest fluttered with nerves. No, he said, his tone even, but let's eat first. We'll need the strength for this. She nodded, sipping her coffee, its bitter taste anchoring her. They ate in near silence, the weight of their unspoken truth looming. Elena watched Caleb from beneath her lashes, searching for a glimpse of his thoughts. His focus on the food felt like a shield, but she couldn't let it stand. Last night, she began again, setting her cup down. It wasn't just the alcohol. Something happened, Caleb. Something we can't ignore. His gaze flickered to hers, a flash of weariness breaking through his calm. What's there to say, Elena? He replied, his fingers tightening around his coffee mug. I was reckless. She admitted, her voice soft but firm. And you were there, steady as always. But I saw something in your eyes, Caleb. Don't tell me you didn't feel it too. Her words hung between them, a challenge that crackled in the air. His cheeks flushed a deep crimson that betrayed his struggle. Elena, he stammered, I was just trying to help. It's not what you think. She shrugged, a deliberate nonchalance masking her racing pulse. I'm not blind. I know what I saw, but maybe we need time to process this. Let's revisit it later, when we're both clearer. Caleb nodded, relief washing over his features. Yeah, that's probably best, he murmured. Elena retreated to her room, a twinge of satisfaction mingling with uncertainty. She'd unsettled him, but at what cost? Alone, she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, grappling with the dangerous game she was playing. The thrill of pushing boundaries was intoxicating, but the risk of unraveling their family loomed large. As the afternoon faded into evening, Elena found solace in preparing dinner. The rhythmic chopping of vegetables and the sizzle of meat in the pan calmed her nerves. The kitchen was her domain, a place of control amidst the chaos of her emotions. Caleb sat at the island, watching her with a quiet intensity that both unnerved and reassured her. His silence felt heavier now, a fortress she longed to breach. You've been quiet, she remarked, her voice cutting through the hum of the kitchen. His eyes met hers, a flicker of discomfort passing over his face. Just thinking, he said, his tone guarded. Elena set down her knife, her hands free, a gesture of openness. We can't pretend last night didn't happen. Caleb, something shifted and we need to understand what it means. The air crackled with tension, her words a spark in the charged silence. She turned to a drawer, pulling out a bottle of gin and 2 crystal tumblers. Maybe a drink will help us talk, she said, pouring generously. The sound of the gin was a cascade in the quiet, a promise of courage or chaos. She handed him a glass, their fingers brushing, sending a jolt through her. Raising her glass, she took a sip, the burn grounding her. Caleb sipped his drink, his eyes locked on hers. You're right, he conceded after a moment. We can't act like everything's normal, but I'm not sure alcohol's the answer. Elena traced the rim of her tumbler, her voice softening. It's not about answers, Caleb. It's about being honest. Maybe the gin will help us get there. They drank in a silence that grew companionable, the tension easing slightly. As the evening unfolded, their conversation danced around trivialities, a cautious truce, but the gin worked its magic, loosening their tongues and dissolving barriers. Elena felt the shift in the air, a charged undercurrent of desire. Caleb's gaze, once carefully averted, now lingered on her, his eyes darkening as they traced her form. She reveled in the power of her femininity, the gin fueling a boldness that pushed her to test the limits. Leaning forward to set her glass down, her dress gaped, revealing a glimpse of cleavage that drew his gaze like a magnet. "Something catching your eye, Caleb?" She teased, her voice a sultry whisper. His flush deepened, his composure slipping. "Elena?" he murmured, his voice strained. "Don't." But she couldn't stop. Rising from her seat, she moved with deliberate grace, bending to pick up a napkin, her movements calculated to provoke. The tension reached a fever pitch, the gin stripping away their inhibitions. When their eyes met again, there was no turning back. Elena closed the distance, her heart pounding as she leaned in. Their lips met in a collision of need, a kiss that was both a challenge and a surrender. It was sweet and urgent, a release of pent-up longing that had simmered since the night before. The kiss deepened, Elena's fingers threading through Caleb's hair, pulling him closer. His hands found her waist, gripping her with a possessiveness that sent shivers through her. The world faded, the city's hum a distant echo. Their movements grew frantic, the thin straps of her dress slipping from her shoulders, pulling at her feet. Clothing became an obstacle, shed with urgency as they stumbled toward her bedroom. On the soft expanse of her bed, they came together with a hunger that obliterated boundaries. The labels of stepmother and stepson dissolved, meaningless in the face of their desire. Elena's body arched beneath Caleb's touch, every nerve alive with sensation. She reveled in his weight, the reality of their connection grounding her. Caleb's eyes, dark with awe, roamed over her as if he couldn't believe she was real. Their connection was a living thing, a fusion of bodies and souls that defied explanation. Each kiss, each caress was a step into uncharted territory, the air thick with the scent of their passion. As they moved together, finding a rhythm as old as time, Elena knew this was no fleeting moment. It was a turning point, a crossing of lines from which there was no return. In a bold move, Elena reached for her camera on the bedside table, her skin flushed with the heat of their lovemaking. Caleb watched, his breath ragged, as she set up the tripod. "I want to capture this," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability beneath. Us, untamed, consumed by each other. The camera rolled, its lens capturing the interplay of shadows and light across their bodies, the raw emotion that suffused the room. Their movements resumed a sensual dance that grew more intense under the camera's gaze. The recording amplified their desire, adding a layer of thrill to their encounter. As they climbed toward ecstasy, Elena lost herself in Caleb's gaze, the world narrowing to the man who held her. The camera captured every gasp, every moment of pleasure until their control shattered, sending them into a shared abyss. In the aftermath, they lay entangled in sweat-soaked sheets, their breathing ragged. Elena switched off the camera, the red light fading, leaving them in the soft glow of the room. Caleb turned to her, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "Elena, what have we done?" he whispered, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "We've lived," she replied softly, kissing him gently. "We felt something real, and I don't regret it." As they drifted to sleep, their bodies still connected, the camera stood silent, a witness to their secret. The morning light brought clarity, and with it, a wave of guilt. Elena slipped from Caleb's embrace, her movements careful to preserve his sleep. In her office, she powered on the camera, the footage a vivid reminder of their transgression. With a heavy heart, she deleted the files, erasing the digital evidence of their night. The act was a small step toward protecting them, but it couldn't erase the truth of what they'd shared. In the kitchen, the scent of brewing coffee filled the air, a comforting ritual that drew Caleb downstairs. His tousled hair and rumpled clothes made Elena's heart ache with longing. Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of their new reality. She prepared cappuccinos with practiced ease, sliding one across the island. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. Caleb's fingers brushed hers as he took the cup, the contact sending a shiver through her. "Morning," he murmured, his gaze lower into the coffee. They stood in silence, the granite island a barrier between them. Elena knew avoidance was no longer an option. "We need to talk," she said, setting her cup down. "Last night changed everything, Caleb. We can't pretend it didn't mean something." He looked up, his expression a mix of apprehension and resolve. "I know," he said softly, "and I don't want to pretend. I'm in this, Elena, all the way, but we need a plan." She nodded, grateful for his honesty. "We have to be careful. We can't let this destroy our family." Their conversation stretched for hours, navigating hypotheticals and risks. They agreed to keep their relationship secret, setting clear boundaries to protect their loved ones. It was a fragile plan, but it gave Elena hope. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the city, they stood on the balcony, hands intertwined. The road ahead was uncertain, but together they would face it. This story, while intense, touches on themes of consent and boundaries, which are critical in any relationship. Consent isn't just about saying yes in the moment, it's about mutual understanding and respect, especially when emotions and alcohol are involved. Relationships with power dynamics, like the one between Elena and Caleb, require extra care to ensure both parties feel safe and empowered. If you're navigating complex relationships, take time to communicate openly and seek guidance if needed. Love can be powerful, but it's most beautiful when it's built on trust and clarity. Hey, if this story gripped you, hit that subscribe button for Broken Vows. We dive into raw emotional tales that push boundaries and spark conversations. Join our community, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's explore the messy, beautiful sides of human connection together. See you in the next.